For some people, the thought of standing up on a stage and speaking in front of people is the epitome of a nightmare. For others, even the thought of standing in front of a few colleagues to speak is enough to make them break out in a cold sweat. And for others, again, it's all about how they sound in their own heads and the narrative they've told themselves about their own voice. If any of these feelings resonate with you, or you know someone with whom they might resonate, then this episode is for you. Because in today's episode, I'm interviewing the wonderful Sally Prosser. Sally is a voice and public speaking coach, TEDx speaker, author of Voiceprint, and host of That Voice podcast. Over the past 20 years, she's helped hundreds of professionals speak with more confidence, had a career as a TV news reporter, and has built a community of 300,000 or more people on TikTok. Sal lives in Brisbane and her hobbies include jigsaw puzzles, Pilates, and gaming the frequent flyer program, a girl after my own heart. Today, I chat with Sal about all things finding your voice, how to use your authentic voice to communicate clearly and leave the right impression with your audience. So enough of my voice, here's Sally. Sally Prosser, welcome to Less Chatter, More Matter.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am very excited to talk to you because I have been a long-time fangirl on LinkedIn. But before we get to my questions, can you tell our audience a little bit about you? Who are you? What's your expertise? How did you come to find that space?
Absolutely. So I am all things voice. My mum tells me I was born microphone first. So since I was a young child, I asked for a microphone from Santa. And the first thing I did was give a thank you speech to Santa for getting me that microphone. So my whole background, public speaking, debating, drama, I've really had this tendency to go into communication and voice. And then at uni, I did law and journalism. Went into journalism, worked in broadcast radio, news, then television news. Then I went to the other side of the microphone and was the spokesperson for one of the largest water and sewage companies in Australia. So yes, I was the glamour girl for things you should and shouldn't flush. And that was about 8 years ago now, which is when I left to begin this business, which is where I help people find their voice and speak with confidence, clearly communicate, but more than that, be able to get in touch with their voice as part of who they are. Because I find with communication, it's often a block between what people think they should say and how they should say it and what feels natural and good for them inside. So as a voice coach, I am bridging that gap and bringing people home to the voice they always had.
Oh, I love that. And it's such an important thing too. I think it's a skill that we will delve into more in this interview, but it's not something that we're often taught, is it, in the school or even by our own families often, to have that confidence in the voice, right?
Absolutely. I wrote my book about the family voice print, and I think a lot of it is picked up by osmosis in our families. So I'm one of 4 children. So really, we had to have a loud, confident voice just to get a word in edgewise at Christmas. Yeah. So I saw my mum just being able to talk to anybody, whether it was somebody at the department store or talking to somebody at school. And then my dad, he would always do speeches at our, birthdays, and he was always strong on the phone. I could really hear that voice, and he's been gone more than 10 years now, and I can still hear his voice clearly in my mind. And so I grew up with really strong voices and really strong examples of stepping forward and using your voice. Doesn't matter who it is. That was something that also I learned in my family. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who's delivering a letter or somebody who's the Prime Minister. I remember once I was in Sydney and I was doing a speech and drama exam, and John Howard, the Prime Minister at the time, was on his morning walk in his tracksuit. And my dad was like, "Morning, John, how are you going?" And just struck up with a big conversation. John Howard was really great about it, but it was really one of those examples where we were taught that, of course, respect everybody and communicate clearly with everybody, no matter who they are or where they're from. And we learned that in journalism as well. To be a good journalist, you've really got to be able to develop rapport with a wide range of people.
Absolutely. And I really like that you talked about, you mentioned the word respect there. And I think that's so important today more than ever. We're seeing a lot of people use their voices, but not very necessarily respectfully in that public discourse either. And yeah, it's something that maybe we'll chat about more about. But I want to get back to, where your area of expertise really is. And can you share with us, when you're talking with your clients, what are some of the common anxieties or challenges people have with finding their voice, with speaking publicly?
Number one is the what will people think, what it means, and what will I say? What do I say, and what will they think? And so a lot of my work is around breaking down that and saying, well, the message that wants to come out needs to be stronger than the fear to put it out. People in life who say to me, "Sam, I don't know why you're on LinkedIn, why you're on social media. I just wouldn't know what to say. I don't know. I really admire the way you're always putting stuff out." From people who are in roles where, I mean, maybe Mel, I would argue that everybody needs to be starting to think about their personal brand in this world we live in. But there are people who can live their lives quite happily and have no interest in social media. So what I always say is, if you've got genuinely no interest, that's fine,
Yeah.
But if it's a great channel to use to get your message across and you're feeling like you can't, then that's a different story. And that's what we want to change.
And so I guess that leads me to the next question. What do you think are some of the myths or the common myths around speaking?
I'd say the biggest myth, and this one might be a little bit left field, is that public speaking is a noun. So people think, oh, public speaking is this thing, almost like outside themselves. And partly that's what creates fear around it. It's like this big monster that I need to go and to confront. Whereas speaking it's a verb. It's just to speak. We're just using the channel of our voice to get our communication across in that moment. You and I are both comms people. Sometimes you really do need to put it in an email. Like there are times when having it in writing and having it clearly and it being in a way that a lot of people can have it all there in black and white is the most effective way to get information across.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a voice coach who uses a lot of writing in my communication. I mean, I just wrote a book, which was kind of challenging though, because there was lots of parts of it that it could only be done properly in the audio book, because I'm like, how do I demonstrate this speaking related thing in the book? And that's what it comes down to. So say I'm working with a professional and they're speaking in front of a meeting. And sometimes meetings could have been an email, right? I hear that. But I'd say, okay, so it's not an email. You've got this opportunity to be in front of people. Your voice, the way you're delivering it, the emotion they can hear, the resonance they can feel is what makes all the difference. And it's been shown time and time again that a well-delivered lie is more believable than a poorly delivered truth. And that's not a very nice fact.
Reality, but it is. Yeah.
But it's just so important for people to be able to understand that it is not just the what, it really is how you say it. People are picking up on the tone, the intonation, the gestures. They're wanting to hear and feel if it's all aligned. That the words match the voice, match the gestures, match the facial expression. And this is why it's such a superpower to have with the rise of AI. We know at the moment, I don't know about you, but people are like, oh, is it AI generated? I don't know. We don't want to be
Getting
tricked.
hard to tell.
It's getting hard to tell. Whereas if you're stepping up and you are 100% organic human voice with so much alignment, there's no confusion and you can really connect with people.
It sounds like a couple of things there. One is, like you said, the tone of the message matters as much as the message itself. There's a really interesting experiment in the behavioral science world that they did involving people reading testimony in a fake sort of court case. And in both circumstances, or the test subjects heard the same thing. But when somebody delivered in a really harsh, mean kind of tone versus somebody, in a friendly, kind tone, they were more likely to find in favor of the person who delivered the testimony, who was kind and approachable, even though the words were exactly the same, the facts of the case were exactly the same. And it brings me to the second point, which I think you're alluding to here, is the inherent humanity of using your voice. That's something you can't get really to that level out of writing or out of the AI work that you were talking about.
Yeah. And when it comes down to trust, like that's what communication really is. It's about having that trust. And when lawyers talk about a good witness, going back to that study, I hadn't heard of that. That really
Fascinating.
sounds like something that would be useful for me to get.
I'll send a link to you.
The good witness, it's not what they're saying, it's are they likable? Is the way that they speak and the way they sound, is that going to make the jury or the judge like
Believe
them?
me. And like us, so
Now, I'd say that's the first myth, people thinking, oh, it's this thing outside myself, rather than thinking just being a particular vehicle that you choose as being the best way to get information across at the time. And the other biggest myth is that public speaking, it's not really a myth, but it's something I hear all the time. Everyone doesn't like public speaking. Like no one likes public speaking. These sweeping statements, no one likes public speaking. Everybody hates the sound of their voice. And then we really work with that inner voice, because if we make these sweeping statements about things, then, as I say in my book, if you say so, you're creating the reality that you're going to experience.
the stories we tell ourselves, right? It's that narrative of, well, I've never been good at speaking. I've never liked it. I've never, I got told once my voice sounded like, a 12-year-old nasally girl. And I've noticed on LinkedIn lately, you've been sharing some videos around that concept as well, the sound of your own voice. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I'm just having a look here. I had it with the Voiceprint confession phone.
Yes, the phone.
It's just here, yes. So I ran this project where I asked people to pick up the phone, and this was the idea of it being old school phone, no texting or anything like that, and that it was a confession that no one was watching. Forget dance like no one's watching. This was speak like no one's listening. And one of the questions was, has anyone said something mean about your voice? And there were, oh, it's too twangy, it's too Australian, it's too nasal, it's too this, it's too that. A lot of the answers were, oh, the meanest things I've said about myself. It's interesting how we create this identity around the sound of our voice. I have been told on the same video in comments, I could listen to your voice all day, and you have the world's most annoying voice, shut up. Like on the same video. And so then we have to really ask ourselves that nothing is the truth. It's just what we choose to believe. And the younger generations aren't experiencing this as much because they're recording and hearing themselves back a lot more.
Yeah, that's really true.
Than previous generations. There is a difference to it when we hear ourselves speak. It's through bone conduction, which means we actually have built-in shower voice. When we hear ourselves back on a recording, it's through air conduction. So our voice actually does sound different hearing it back. It's called voice confrontation, when we're like, oh my gosh, what is that about? And in my book, I write a whole chapter called Operation Voice Cupid, because if we don't learn to love our voice and we don't have this relationship with it, how can it have influence for other people? It's like a pet. You've got to nurture it, care for it. If you neglect it and treat it badly, it'll turn around and bite you, and it won't be there for you.
I love that analogy. And actually, I do remember the first time I heard my voice recorded, outside of a 1989, camcorder recording. I also did journalism as an undergrad and majored in radio. And the first time I heard my voice back after doing a radio piece, I've just felt like I sound like a little girl. Like nobody else said that. I said that. And it was quite, I guess, I still remember it to this day because it was a little bit confronting. I didn't think of myself as a little girl, but in my head, I sound like a little girl. And it did make me really rethink how I talk. And that's something also I think, and I'm sure you've seen this too, it comes with practice as well, not just the confidence, but the capability to be able to have a conversation without all the ums and the ahs and the second guessing and those sorts of things.
Definitely. There's so much skill involved in it. And you mentioned like the little girl voice. I have got a radio background and have worked with lots of young journalists. And actually the first call of our year for my group program, Soul Speakers, was how to speak with resonance, because a pattern that's happening is most people speak too much in their head. And they just use the head resonance. There's this nice voice, especially for women. It's the, I don't want to be a bitch pitch. It's, everything's fine. And we stay up here, but it can get so high, it goes into a pitch that only dogs and small children can hear. So one of the biggest things that I'm doing as a voice coach is returning the voice to the body. Like the voice runs from the soles of your feet to the crown of your head. And where most, executives, leaders, everyone's letting themselves down is that they're not accessing the voice in the heart to be able to really get that genuine feeling. They're not able to go down to the solar plexus, which is the great motivator, which is where action lives. So if someone's going, oh, can you send me that email? It's going to sound like a good idea because the head is where ideas live. The solar plexus is where action lives. So it's literally where in the body you're producing your voice, which will connect with your message. Really important in high stakes, because in high stakes, your body's squeezing up. It's like a tube of toothpaste. You're getting a lot of tension, and then the voice pops up high and you lose that power of it being right throughout your body. So of course, as a voice coach, a lot of the work I do is around how you feel about your voice and that relationship, but that comes with actually learning how to use it. Most people are walking around with this beautiful 88-key piano and just banging on one note again and again and again, and wondering why they're not getting different results when we've got this beautiful set of keys. And once you can learn how to play and how to express, whoa, the difference is absolutely incredible. Especially, well, I shouldn't say especially, in so many situations that speaking to the media, you'll have a spokesperson who will say all the right things. Oh, like if I saw the transcript, I'd be like, yeah, key message, bridging, boom, like, love it. But because they haven't produced it from their heart, they're going to sound like they're lying. Because their airflow hasn't been good, they're going to sound like they're lying. Because it's in their head, they're going to sound like they're not confident and credible. This is why this is so important, because you can have the best letter, but if you can't deliver it and no one receives it, then what's the point of writing it in the first place?
Yeah. And I think, if we speak the language of the corporate world, which, you and I have both been in, it is a reputational risk, isn't it, at that personal brand level, to not invest in, upskilling your voice in that way, and not putting the time into thinking it's important. I think a lot of the work I do and I have done over the last 25 years is everyone's so focused on that media statement. They're so focused on what word we're going to use here instead of here. And then when it comes to the crunch and the CEO has actually front up in front of media or shareholders or employees, it doesn't matter what words you had in that statement that everybody argued over for weeks beforehand or hours beforehand. It's how it's delivered that makes all the difference.
There's an amazing voice coach called Dr. Louise Marler. She's on LinkedIn as well. And she did this amazing post the other day. As a voice coach, we work in the land of air. Your voice is powered by air. Almost everything comes back to the breath. And she said that leadership is all about air management. And I was like, boom, that's what it is. Because if they're in front of those shareholders or in front of that microphone and they're not managing their airflow, not being able to regulate their nervous system and give their voice the fuel required, game over.
Brilliant. Yeah. And we're talking a bit about the preparation that we have in terms of, those bigger events. But a lot of what we do in a workplace is spontaneous speaking. It's, I need to pipe up in a meeting, or I've met somebody on the stairwell or in the lifts that it's an opportunity to have a conversation. How could we use our voice to make these spontaneous moments more powerful, less worrying for us?
Yeah. So the way I work is we prepare in the masculine, deliver in the feminine, prepare in the yang, deliver in the yin. And what that basically means is we prepare the frameworks, we prepare the loose structure, and then when we deliver, we want to go into that feminine flow, adaptability, being able to read the room. To give you an idea, a lot of people prepare in the masculine. I need to know everything I'm saying. I need to work out every single word. Every single one of my slides has written notes of what I'm going to say. And then when I deliver it, I do it exactly like that. And I think it went really well because I didn't say anything that I didn't plan to say. When actually it was a real disaster because they didn't have rapport, they didn't connect, they couldn't read the room. It was, not good. Alternatively, which is what I find with on-the-spot speaking, is people are totally in the feminine. Oh, I'll just feel into it at the moment. Oh, it'll be fine. I'll just think of the right thing. It comes along. Oh, and it's usually a mess. So one example is using the framework of what I call the baton handover. So for any extemporaneous speaking or speaking on the fly, you can use this structure. And the first structure is one line taking it from the person before, which could be like, thanks, Mel. Great point, Tom. Just that's it. The next thing you say is a line that involves the number 1, 2, or 3. There's one story I'd like to share. There's 2 options we could take with this. There's 3 main things we need to be looking at. If you go over 3, it's too many to remember. But you say one line that includes 1, 2, or 3, and then you obey those rules. You give your 1 story, your 2 options, your 3 points. This is really good for not getting interrupted as well, because often people will interrupt because they don't know where you're going or what you're going to say. But if you've told us that you've got 3 points, then we're right, okay, we've got to wait for these 3 points. You say the 3 points and then you do not add on to that. And then the last line is handing back. Is that handing to the audience? Is that handing to the chair? Is that handing to the next person? That is so much control, because if you don't know how to take the baton, set the rule, obey the rules, and hand the baton back, like that's full masterful communication, then someone will interrupt. Then you won't know when to stop speaking and you run into trouble. So see how, even though it might feel like it's on the spot talking, it never is if you've got your frameworks that you can put in there.
I love that. And it does echo what Matt Abrahams from, I think he's at Stanford University, he talks about in his book, having like preparing for the spontaneous, essentially. And but I love the baton reference. I feel like that's a really great analogy for people to get their head around and go, yeah, like it's not just about me, actually, like it is, but you control that situation, which is, I feel like that's where a lot of our nerves often come from, is just this feeling of lack of control.
Yeah, you're right. We teach people how to listen to us.
100%.
We teach people through the clarity in what we say, through our pausing. And I write this in my book as well. I say it's easy to wing it when you've been preparing your whole life.
Yep.
So it's really about people not comparing where they are with someone else without knowing all of the things that they've done to get there.
Yeah, 100%. I get comments every now and then after I've spoken at an event going, oh, you're just such a good speaker and natural speaker. And I know my stuff inside out. This isn't new material for me. So it's something that I'm deeply familiar with. I've written 2 books about this sort of thing. But also, as you say, it's not my first rodeo, and it's taken a long time to build that up as well, and to refine and practice and change things and get feedback and change again. What seems effortless often is very rarely effortless, I think, in many ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of effort that goes into being effortless.
There you go. Put that on a T-shirt. Okay, next question. What are some of your 3 to 5 tips if somebody wants to start now, they want to improve their confidence with their voice? What are some of the top tips you'd give them to get started?
Upskill yourself. We're more, as you say, when you know your material inside out, you feel more confident. I have people that feel more confident speaking before their first session. They just feel more confident because they've made the decision to book it in. And often speaking gigs come in between that time because it's the energetic thing that's been put out there. So I would say there's so many great podcasts. There's great free resources. I would say make a transaction, because if you're just playing around the free content, that's not really a commitment to yourself to do it. So I would say do some training. The second thing is start breathing. So every day, just take 5 conscious breaths, breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, because normally a voice that struggles is because breath is struggling. The breath is not deep. It's very hard to speak from the solar plexus, like I mentioned earlier, if the breath's not getting there. So breathing. And then the next thing, I would say humming as well is a good practice, but we need one that involves doing it in front of other people. So I would say volunteer to speak at the meeting. If you haven't got the opportunities to put yourself into that little area of discomfort, then pick up your phone and do an Instagram story, do a LinkedIn video. It's interesting as well when I have some people go, oh, I really want to speak on stage. I'm like, well, why haven't you posted videos on social media? Oh, I couldn't possibly. I'm like, well, let's just take this in some steps, right? Yeah. The more confident you are on camera, the more confident you'll be posting online. Like, radio for me, going from radio to TV was a step up. But then going from TV now to posting on social media, it feels much easier than live on national TV.
A little less stressful. Yeah, and then
Sometimes, yeah, but you're absolutely right. And so I'd say put yourself into those situations. Not the fear zone. Don't go from like 0 to hero. Like don't go from, oh, I'm not saying anything to now I'm going to speak in front of 1,000 people, because I've seen professionals do that, and often it's because their management has set them up for failure, and that's not good. They've just put them too far, and then you'll retreat. So you've got to identify where is your like growth zone. What's something that just feels a little bit uncomfortable, and go for it and do it.
love it. Baby steps, right? It's like with anything. We weren't born knowing how to walk. We weren't born knowing how to drink out of a cup. We had to learn everything. So, this is no different. It's little baby steps that we build up over time, and nobody's going to deliver confidence to your door. That's something I say to some of our clients is it's not just going to come overnight and here it is in a package. You're going to get little bits of it in the mail, and it's going to build up to something. It doesn't come overnight.
Absolutely. Confidence is a feeling. I like describing confidence like a garden. Like I feel like I have quite a lot of confidence now because I am tending to a pretty mature garden. It started small. It's every day. What are you doing to build confidence, to water those plants? And I mean, you can DM me and be like, you sound like a crazy person, but I do a lot of mirror work and even naked mirror work. So if you can stand naked in front of your mirror in the morning and be like, I'm so glad I'm you. You and me, babe, are going to slay the day. Because every day we get to choose our allies and our enemies, and they live inside our head. It really is you against you. What are your practices that make you feel invincible? And this is why I do things like 10-day silent retreats and climbing mountains, snow covered in my underwear, and underwear in active wear, cold exposure. And then this September, I'm walking the Camino de Santiago, which is an 800-kilometer. I know. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it. We're done.
No, it's accountability now. Now you have to do it.
Well, it's booked when I'm going. I guess I'm sharing that because we become confident when we do things that we didn't think that we could do, and when we keep promises to ourselves. So if you say you're going to do something, whether it be post a video or speak to a person or send an email or whatever it is, keep the promise to yourself. Because if we set up this series of letting ourselves down, then it creates this narrative that, oh, well, we failed. We didn't do it. Yeah.
Love that. Now, I want to ask about the book because it is brand spanking new and it's out there right now. And we've talked a little bit about it, but tell us, where did the book come from? What's the thing that you're hoping will be left behind with readers after they have a look through it?
Mel, I love that you chose the word left behind, because that's why it's called Voiceprint. So much of the power of our communication and our speaking is not while we're doing it. It's actually the mark that we leave behind. Some people will talk with what I describe as no consequence. They'll say something and people will leave and they won't even remember that person was there, what they said, how they said it. That's the reality. A lot of people are speaking to be forgotten, but if you're speaking to be remembered and leaving that voice print, that invisible mark you leave on the world when you speak, where the words you say and the way you say them echo in people's minds. I mentioned earlier about my dad, how I can still hear his voice now. And we all have those people, don't we? That we go, wow, I remember when that person said that. We remember the strong voices. And so that was the feeling behind Voiceprint. Also, my approach is voice from the inside out. And what I mean by that is every voice is different. It's your unique voice print. And I found in my experience that sometimes I have shared some frameworks and there are definitely some things that everybody can use. But if we're so tied to there being one right way of doing things, it can stifle the most important thing we have, which is our authenticity, our individuality with our voice.
So if I am going to go pick up the book today and I flick through it, what are some of the, apart from, the the imprint that we just talked about, what are some of the key things that I'll find in that book? What are some of the little magic sparkles that are in the book?
It's full of magic sparkle. Especially the whole middle part, the VOICE formula, is what you can actually do. The vibrations, openness, I is for intonation, C is for clarity, E is for expression. It's all with exercises as well. There's lots of pull-out exercises for you to do and exercise your voice. It's just like a muscle that you need to. And the book also invites you to think about voice in a completely different way. So there's a whole chapter on how you can use your voice to manifest things in your life. There's a whole chapter about voice care, leaving your voice print behind, and not just voice health, like caring for it, which is so important. There's a big difference in the way people's voices sound in their 70s and 80s and 90s.
That's very
And it is
true.
a reflection of how they've looked after it and how they've exercised it. And, you know, if the rest of your body's breaking down as you age, you want to have a really strong voice. I've had clients, I share the story in the book, who came to me because she couldn't talk to her grandkids on FaceTime. They wouldn't talk to her because they couldn't hear her because her voice
Oh,
was so
darling.
weak. Yeah, so we go deeper than that and say, well, what is the voice print legacy? Can you break the speaking cycle? I spoke at the start of this about my parents. We had quite a strong voice print in our family. But other people, we don't talk about that in this house. Sweep it under the rug. Don't embarrass the family. Oh, no, we couldn't possibly speak loudly. That's obnoxious. Be polite. And so if you've got these kind of voice print stories in the family, you can change that and you can break the speaking cycle. And that gives you a bit of an insight into how this book, it's a business book, and it's a personal development book. And as Dr. Catherine Ball, who's an amazing LinkedIn creator, in her testimonial, she said, it's the modern manifesto you didn't know you needed.
Oh, I love that. Well, if that doesn't get our listeners wanting to rush out and buy a copy right now, I don't know what does. Where can they find it?
Voiceprint by Sally Prosser. It's available online. It's in Dimmicks. It's in many, many stores. And as long as you're saying Sally Prosser and see the red, too red to be pink, too pink to be red, just look out for that colour. And if not, just message me on social media at Sally Prosser Voice and I'll point you in the right direction.
Amazing. Thank you. Now, we have 3 questions we ask every guest on the podcast. Are you ready for those?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. The first one is, what's the best communication lesson you ever learned and how did it change the way you communicate?
So it's from my former boss. Her name is Michelle Cull. She works in communication at Logan City Council at the moment. And she would always say, define or be defined. Define or be defined. And it's a way that whenever we feel like, oh no, we won't say anything, we're going to stay quiet, pipe down, bad strategy. Because if you don't write your story, someone else will.
Especially in a crisis, right?
Especially in a crisis, absolutely. So very, very relevant for corporate communication, also relevant for personal communication. Like if you're worried, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me. Look, they're judging you anyway.
Yep.
So you might as well have them judging you on you out there using your own authentic voice.
That's exactly right. And there's also, it's called the spotlight effect, where we think more people are paying attention to us than they actually are too a lot of the time. So walking around like everybody's looking at me, darling, I promise you nobody's looking at you. They're all too much in their own heads.
When someone says, I'm afraid I'm going to get cancelled, I'm like, that would be my dream. If we woke up to a headline, Sally Prosser cancelled, people would actually have to know who I was. So I'm like, let's cross that amazing bridge when we come to it.
Love it. Okay, next question. What is one thing you wish people would do more of or less of when communicating?
I wish people would do less words. Jim Rohn says we make up in words what we lack in confidence. And I wish people use the pause more.
Yes. I'm with you on that one. It's actually a lesson I learned more through group fitness than anything else because I've been teaching group fitness classes for over a decade. And you've got to learn to shut up. Sometimes you just got to shut up because too many words make it really hard for people to follow the instructions, to understand you. And it's something I think I also learned in sort of journalism 101, you know, sometimes if you're if you pause and you're quiet, it's amazing what the talent will say. They will just keep talking to fill the silence. And that's sometimes where most of the gold is.
Yeah, and podcasting is great because we can pause and likely no one will switch off. It's a bit harder on social media because you've got to keep the attention. So often I'm cutting out my pauses to keep the video moving along. And it's why I like long form and I like being in front of audiences, because being able to be in silence and hold the energy with your body and your facial expression, and everyone's going, oh my gosh, this is almost getting awkward. And then you come back in. Like, it's just the best way to be able to engage an audience.
Love it. And our last question, who do you look to for communication advice?
Well, I would have to say Taylor Swift. Like, she is just amazing. And in her documentary, you see her talking to her team, the words that she's choosing, the way she's saying, the way she's communicating with her whole body, speaking from the heart. And I think a lot of people can learn a lot from that. And for somebody who is more on LinkedIn, because I don't think Taylor's got a LinkedIn account, Dr. Ade Sarai is really brilliant. She's been on my podcast many years ago. She's just released a book called Big Trust, and she shares lots of brilliant communication tips, all backed up by research. Funny, you mentioned earlier about the and ahs. Her latest video is all about how your credibility is shot to pieces if you're using too many filler words. So, on note.
Love it. I love it. We should all watch more of that, I think. So on that note, Sally, if people want to get in touch with you, find out more about you, where's the best place for them to do that?
LinkedIn, Sally Prosser. Instagram, TikTok at Sally Prosser Voice. And my website is sallyprosser.com.au. Don't forget the AU.
Brilliant.
Oh, and my podcast, That Voice Podcast.
Yes, we should absolutely hop over there now that you've listened to this episode, everybody, and go check out Sally's podcast. Well, Sally, thank you so much for your time on Less Chatter, More Matter today.
Thanks for having me.